The highlights are based around everybody believes for the last 10 years, every single year, that SMEs should be the driving force for the country, for the economy, and for the banking sector. But the reality check is, it never transpires. And there are quite a number of reasons why it never happens. First and foremost is that SME banking is kind of like a fad. So, я интересую сегодня, и через следующий кризис, либо ликвидностный кризис, я уходит. I fire all my people, I get out of this segment, and I say пока to all my SME customers. And I can give you multiple examples of big banks in Ukraine who have this approach. And then 2 years later, it's again popular. Let's do SME lending because it's cool and it's good for the bank and good for the country. And how do you think SME customers react to that? Is it a sign of strength? Is it a sign that you are committed? Probably not. So what you see in the, here we go. So what you see in the market is you see a heavy concentration of a few banks dominating. And those banks have been in SME banking since EBRD came here in 1994 with the first microcredit line. Maybe even before then. And since then, over the last 10, 15 years, the cycle continues. In banking, out of SME banking. In SME banking, out of SME banking. That's not sustainable. And that won't help Ukraine or SMEs get to the ultimate pinnacle of successful SME banking. Now, I speak because I work for a group that is highly committed to SME banking. It's in our culture, in the Raiffeisen group. We don't take it as something we just do a little bit and we're happy. We're in it 100% in terms of people, resources, capital, liquidity. And that makes the difference. That makes the difference between success and failure. So just a little bit about us, if you already don't know. So we're the #1 bank in SME lending in the country. There's nobody even close to us. And this is based on 14 and 15 statistics, and I can tell you the margin increases or the difference between us and 2016 and our core competitors continues to increase. And as they say, if you play poker with cards in Las Vegas, we double down, meaning we put more money, more effort, more resources into making this the #1 profitable segment in our bank. As I mentioned, 2 banks hold more than 50% of the market. The Yellow Submarine, as Dima mentioned, and the Big Green Bank. So the rest of the 50% is shared amongst, you can see, 7, 8, 9 banks. So what are those main drivers of failures in SME banking? I'm quite often reading Ukrainian, Russian press, and I'm fascinated by how many banks say, we want to be #1 in SME lending. We're going to be the best. We're going to lend billions and billions of hryvnia. Good. Let's do it together. Congratulations. But it never happens. You know why? Because there's not a commitment. The CEO, head of retail, head of corporate says, it's good PR. It's good for the image of the bank to say we're in SMEs. But it never happens because there's no institutional capacity. There's no long-term strategy. And as I mentioned in Raiffeisen, there's no culture of SME. If you don't have those 3, good luck, really, because you'll struggle. And you will be prone to being cyclical. In, out, Yes, let's go. No, let's stop. It's not profitable. So, second is know-how. And here comes the big dilemma. Where does SME sit? Is it branch-based in retail? Or is it in corporate? And this discussion happens all around the world. Not only here, but in Austria, in America, in Singapore, in China. And this decision you make is, I think, one of the biggest decisions you'll make to determine whether your SME business is successful or not successful. Because it determines who is running the business of SME, who is making the strategy, and who is executing. And I am a strong believer that SMEs are branch-based. SMEs don't work out of corporate centers. They don't work out, they work in the branch. They come to the branch. They want to be serviced in the branch. They want to have context, what we call proximity. They want to be near their bank. They don't want to be far away. Third, risk appetite. Big question. If you're responsible for SME and it's in corporate business, do you want to make $1 million loan or $110,000 loans? If I'm a corporate banker, I say, of course, Robert, конечно, я буду дают на $100 million кредит. But then you're not an SME. And that's the dilemma that a corporate banker. And you can also flip it over and say to the retail banker, how difficult it is to make 100 loans of $10,000. Where I can make 20,000 loans for 15,000 grivna or 10,000 grivna in Foxtrot. SME loses each time. So that's why it's important to have a proper risk appetite. And when I say risk appetite, I talk about the people behind the culture of risk management in your bank. Do you know how many SME dedicated, 100% dedicated to SME we have in Raiffeisen Bank Aval? 37. 37 risk managers do underwriting, verification, policy, modeling. In addition, I have another 35 people working in collections. Dedicated. Commitment. Not just words. We want to be number one. I have a commitment to be number one, and I put the resources, my shareholders do, my management board, and that's where we go. Number 4, reporting. If you don't know what your P&L is for SME, don't even start. If you don't have the ability to measure the difference, what is the P&L impact of SME versus corporate versus mass, don't start. You're kidding yourself. Because SME banking is exactly what it is. It's banking. And if you cannot measure it, why do it? Please stay with corporate, stay with mass. And when I talk about full P&L, I talk about end-to-end. 5, so many times I hear CEOs, management of bank make statements in the press. We want to be the number one. But they don't put the resources. They don't invest. They don't hire people. And what happens? We want to be number one. Go hire somebody from Raiffeisen. Okay, fine. So you come to my bank, you hire my best people, and guess what happens when that person comes into this bank? He fails. He falls flat on his face. Why? It's impossible for this person, who is one of my best people, to change a whole bank if you have no SME culture. Sorry. So you can buy resources. You can buy expertise. You cannot buy culture. You cannot buy SME banking mentality. This comes from years and commitment. This should be not surprising to you. These are numbers we put together. You can question whether it's 5% or 10%, even 20%. It's still poor. So after 10 years, SMEs have made a very small contribution to overall legal entity lending. Why? For the many reasons I mentioned. And to be honest with you, I don't see it changing. I do not see it changing. I would like to be surprised, and I will do my part. We as Raiffeisen will do our part. But the market is big enough for more banks. It's not our strategy to control the market. Really, it's not. But if the market is untapped, of course we will go after it. I want to be number one, but really, do you want to be number one? Is this what your customers tell you, that they want to bank with a number one bank? No, I don't think so. We in Raiffeisen put our ear to the ground and listen to our customers. We invest really a lot of time, effort to understanding what our customers want. If you don't, how can you service them? How can you design products? How can you understand what is right for them, what is not right for them? If you do not listen to the voice of the customer. And you see right here, do you see kreditovanje? Do you see lending here? Where's lending? Do you see it? I don't see it. But we talk about lending, so important for SMEs. It is important. It is very important. But SMEs are not saying that, sorry. And this is from GfK. So we talk around the issue, but we don't really understand our customers. This you know, 85, 95, America 98, Union, EU also very high. The opportunity exists, it's there. It's there. And I am a strong believer that your retail banking is as good as your SME. If you're only good in mass, in doing unsecured, you'll never be a good retail bank. Do you know why? There's a simple theory that your mass business of retail covers 70 to 80% of your cost in retail banking. All your distribution, all your overhead, and guess where you make money? SME banking and premium banking, affluent banking. They have a low cost base and high ability to capitalize on this low cost base because the mass business takes all the cost. And if you look at the structure of the earnings of good retail banks, the mass business is at best break even. And the driver of profitability for retail banking in large banks is SME and premium banking. To show you how important SME banking is in terms of the P&L for Raiffeisen Group, 16 countries. The retail result, let's say last year, 600 million euros. Do you know how much was contributed by SME? 50%. 300 million euros in profit after tax was contributed by SME banking in 15 countries. 50%. The other 30% from premium banking and 20% from mass. If you want to compete against Raiffeisen, let's put it this way. If you're a boxer and I want to fight the world champion in boxing, Do I go into the ring and straight, fight, fight, fight? No. I have a strategy. What is that man's weakness? And I tackle his weakness. I don't box straight with the world champion. I will die in 1 minute. But many banks want to challenge Raiffeisen straight to straight. You will beat me. No. Because I have SME culture. I have SME culture in my bank, in my organization. You will beat me by finding my weakness. Find my weakness, and then you beat me in that particular area. You will do what every fintech does. You will disrupt me. You will disrupt the market. But you will not beat me. And fintechs don't propose to beat Wells Fargo. They don't propose to beat JP Morgan or Crédit Agricole. They propose to disrupt you in one particular area. And you saw the slide this morning on disruption. So don't try to compete. Disrupt me. Invest. Find your niche. How you can disrupt Privat, Raiffeisen, Ukrsib. This is where you will be a champion. But with 500 branches, Privat 3,000, Ukrsib 400, I talked about the failures. Now, what does it take to be successful? Many of the points I said. First and foremost, commitment. If you as a board member, responsible for SME, you as a CEO, do not have in your list priorities, SME, forget it. This year, SME banking is number 3 in my priority. My top 5 priorities, I spend 50% of my time every year focusing on those 5 priorities, 50%. 20% on firefighting, 30% on other issues. Next year in 2017, guess what my top priority is? You're right, SME. SME banking is my top priority for 2017. And I've been working on this for 1 year. I don't come in January and wake up and think, okay, what are my priorities? I'm working on 2017 5 months ago. If you don't have a culture, create one. And that starts with getting good people and giving them the tools, the ability to make decisions and to run. And if you put your head of SME at B-2 or B-3, stop, go back, start over. Priority. Where does SME sit in your organization structure, and where does it sit in your bank priorities? Risk management. I've seen so often risk management managed by corporate. Guess what you get if risk management is for SME is managed by corporate. And I've seen so many banks try to use mass scorecards, mass lending approaches from the risk management side for private entrepreneurs. All have ended in failure here. And I can give you names of banks, and I will not, but maybe in the break I can tell you individually. So you create a dedicated team. Up to 40 people, risk management. They have all the tools, scorecards, rating models, processes. Not developed over 1 year, of course. Many are group examples, experiences, tools that are used across Raiffeisen. But that's where it starts. Simply hiring a B-1 from Raiffeisen and telling him, go do SME. He will die because he doesn't have the people behind him, either on the sales side or the risk management side, to do his job. Well-trained SME managers. We as Raiffeisen invest at least 20 to 25 hours of training every year for our SME managers. if you don't invest in your people, what do you expect from them? You'll get poor results and lost expectations, and the board will say, why do we do SME banking? Look at it. Better to put our money capital to use in corporate or Foxtrot lending. Sorry, the last point is very here for me. I'm a preacher of SME banking, not of SME credit. I preach SME banking, and credit is a part of that, but it's not called SME credit or SME lending. If you look at what customers want, SMEs, you saw it, it's continual, year on year. They want services, internet banking, current account, fair tariffs, and then lending. We did a study a couple years ago and looked at when we were actively involved in the EBRD microcredit program. And we had thousands, tens of thousands of borrowers. And we did a study, looked at them. And the most successful businesses who repaid their loans were those who did what? Those who banked with us, meaning put their current account turnover, bought products. Those who only took a loan from us, far, far in performance, the worst customers we've ever had in our bank. The worst customers. Because they just take a loan from us and they bank somewhere else. Sorry. That's not a strategy that is sustainable. And there's no international bank here, there, who follows that. We're here to talk about banking, right? So we're not non-profit. We're a commercial entity. You work for commercial entities who want to bring a return to their shareholders. So there are some metrics to measure whether you're successful in SME banking. Financial metrics, which is extremely important if you want to show your board members and your shareholders that this is a good business to be in. It's sustainable, long-term, and profitable. First, who knows what RORAC is? So that's the capital that you put into the business, and that's the return you get out of it. And there's a measurement in international banks on RORAC on a segment level. Not only on the bank level, but on the segment level. And if you're doing 25 to 30%, believe me, your shareholders will be extremely happy. In Ukraine, this number is 2 times bigger because of the environment we live in and the cost of capital. Second, if you don't have scale, you'll never be profitable. You cannot be marginally competitive with 5,000 SME customers and expect to cover your cost, your risk cost, your overhead cost, your investment costs. Better not to play in this part, this segment. So, best practice, industry, Central Eastern Europe, you need a minimum of 30,000 customers to meet some threshold. Below that, good luck. Not many examples where you've been successful. Who knows what SEER is? Oh. Much more common. Cost-income ratio. Measurable, valuable, and important. This is a barometer to tell you how good you're doing against your cost. Standardized across the world for banking. And if you're in the 40, 45%, you're a damn good SME bank, I tell you. Risk to income. Who knows what that is? Risk to income. So risk provisions to income, gross income. This measures how well you're doing in risk management against the income you're receiving as a result. It's a combination of these two parameters. If you're below 10%, we have a concept called you're leaving money on the table. You're not aggressive enough, and there's good opportunities because you're too conservative. If you're over 15%, 30%, you've made bad decisions. You have high provisions. You have probably high NPL. Number 5, loan net interest income to gross income. So this is the contribution of your lending, I say loan, interest income that you earn in relative to your gross income. So as you can see, if you're not delivering 35 to 50% of your gross income in SME from lending, you're too conservative. You need to lend more. Because that means that the other 50% is coming from liabilities and commission income. And as you can see, key profit drivers for SME business is deposits and transaction banking. This is not my statement. This comes from every consultant in the world, every big bank. And it goes back to my original statement. I believe here that it's SME banking, not SME lending, that we focus on. So my recommendations to all of you and for whoever wants to be in SME banking, invest in digital, but don't forget about the branch. Big discussion, many of you, do we need branches, digital, how fast, how slow, why we build branches, why we keep branches? Good discussion. But if you look at the voice of the customer, SMEs want proximity, meaning they want to be close to their bank. Now, as a growing trend, they want to be able to have a distance relationship, but when they need it, they want to be close. Build your branch network based on long-term relationship. If you expect that SME customers will fulfill all your dreams of financial profitability in 1 year, it won't happen. It's based on a long-term relationship. You look at a time horizon of 5 years. 5 years to maximize the potential of an SME customer. 5 years. That's a pretty long time. Not many shareholders, not many management boards has the ability to wait 5 years. Nevertheless, there are opportunities, and if you focus on transactional banking, you'll be much faster than 5 years. I'm a believer that retail banking success is based on your SME business. It provides customers. The employees of your SME will bank with you. The owner will bank with you. They cannot be separated. The best banks in the world, I tell you the truth, and I looked at it, lots of studies, conferences. The best banks in retail are the best SME banks. Simple. SME is different. It's not corporate and it's not mass. If you can understand that, you have a chance to be successful. Because that means you're thinking outside the box. You're thinking of a niche. You're thinking of a different strategy than saying, it's like corporates. Just put it with Sasha. Sasha will take care of it. Put it with Yaroslav. He'll take care of it in retail. Let's make it, yeah. SME, it's Great. Fantastic. Be unique. Give your value proposition. What is your value proposition to SME customers? Lending. We will offer you 13%. That's a value proposition. But that is the mentality. To undercut loan rates. Remember what I said about those who borrow and don't bank. You will lend at 13%. But I guarantee you within 1 year, the majority of those customers will be NPL. So think about it. Be unique. Find your value proposition. Find your niche. And you'll be successful. Thank you.